everybody, and welcome back to yet another very exciting episode of the Friends Talking Fantasy Podcast. My name is Charles, and with me today, as always, is my lifelong friend and co-host, Dylan.
I'm ready to talk some fantasy with my friends, Charles.
Yes, we are using the plural friends again today because, guys, look, it's no secret that we're talking about The Hunger of the Gods today by John Gwynne, book 2 of the Bloodsworn Trilogy, but it just wouldn't be a proper discussion of the Bloodsworn Trilogy or any John Gwynne material whatsoever here on the show without speaking to legendary booktubers, the Brothers Gwynne. Brothers, welcome. We've got Will and Ed. Welcome to the show, guys.
Charles, Dylan, we're ready to talk some fantasy with my brother and my friends. Yeah, we are definitely up for that.
Yeah, you guys kind of got us beat because, we're lifelong friends, but you guys are family. You one-upped us on that one. We don't have that.
Yeah, what's the saying? You can't choose your family, can you? But luckily we get along quite well sometimes.
It is pretty incredible that you guys have been able to crank out all these videos together. So tell us more about the Brothers Gwynne, because you guys both have very active Goodreads accounts. You're reviewing a lot of books, and then you have your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, we clearly have no life, really, do we? We just read the whole time, basically. But yeah, you kind of live on Goodreads, really, don't you?
Yeah.
Which is all good. But
I mean, I was actually banned from it for a while, and I had my exams. Parents were like, "Look, Goodreads is becoming too much. You're spending too much time there. You need 2 weeks off." So in hindsight, that was good, but at the time, it was like the worst thing that could have happened to me.
Yeah, but Papa Gwynne has raised us well. He has made sure that we read fantasy from a very young age, and if we didn't, then we would have to leave the house or have no dinner.
Yeah,
it's a pretty strict house, and if we were in trouble, instead of being grounded to your room, you'd have like a Robin Hood book taken off of you, wouldn't you, or something like that? Yeah. He knew how to get to us.
Well, that's good. I would have figured being raised by John Gwynne, you'd always be in danger of being attacked by an axe or a sea axe or whatever. So, getting a Robin Hood book, spears in the mix, getting a Robin Hood book removed, that's terrible. But at least your safety was still secured.
Yeah, I think, though, at the time, I might have taken the axe instead.
Oh, my gosh. Well, yeah, I mean, We're big fans, obviously, of the YouTube channel. You guys have done a lot of fantastic author interviews as well. Fellow Joe Abercrombie Interview Club member here.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys recently did a book ranking as well. I won't get into that too much, but I do have an issue of where you placed The Trouble with Peace. I would have put it way higher up. But, otherwise, it was a very good video. So, guys, definitely check them out if you like what you hear over on this channel. Be sure to check them out on YouTube. Great stuff going on.
Thanks, guys. We're very excited to be on Friends Talking Fantasy. We love listening to you guys, and especially about the First Law as well. We've had a lot of good chats with you guys, and I'm sure we'll have some in the future. But today is all about Papa Gwynne and the Hunger of the Gods.
All about Papa Gwynne, and I noticed, I checked out your Goodreads channels. You both gave Hunger of the Gods 5 stars, which is good. It would have been awkward if it was, 3 stars or less. You would have had to. Then you would have definitely had to reach for the CX on that one, I think.
Yeah. We didn't have to get paid this time, really, to give it 5 stars. No, I'm joking. They're all 5 stars.
I think you could have given it like 2 and demanded the Farseer book back. Until
negotiation.
Like,
I will keep that in mind next time.
Yeah, you get the book is great. It deserves 5 stars, but I deserve Assassin's Apprentice back on my shelf.
Exactly.
Right now.
Yeah. I mean, you've got some leverage now that you're in the reviewer community, and I'm sure, and you must have gotten advanced copies, right? So you can get that review out in time.
Yeah, we get our exclusive, don't we? So we can threaten him with that.
That is pretty cool. Yeah,
I'm gonna make notes. I'm gonna write this down.
Nice. And so we're waiting for the author interview, I suppose. Is that coming to the channel anytime soon? A little deep dive in the Hunger of the Gods?
I imagine before book 3, we might be able to persuade Dad. If we talk to his agent first, maybe we could probably wrangle him.
He has you go through the agent. That's smart.
Yeah, I love you have to go through the agent to get to your own dad.
Yeah, he'll be like, "No, I'm busy," and then you just see him on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. No, I haven't got time for that today. And he'll be getting sofa watching TV.
Well, it's a nice little family business you guys have running, but let's get into the story because, we had talked about the Shadow of the Gods back when it when it came out just about a year ago, right? And, we were huge fans. We had Sam Bookenhand on, actually, for the discussion. She's a huge Papa Gwynne fan, as are we. And, The Hunger of the Gods, it came by storm, I got to hand it off to Papa Gwynne. He's done a great job kind of finding his audience, and, we were eagerly anticipating it. But I've seen a lot of praise come in for this book, and well-deserved, obviously. It's coming in very strong. But the thing that I appreciated about it the most, and something we got to talk about, is the very beginning of this book has a book one summary in it, and it's masterful. It's one of the best catch story so far kind of segments I've ever read. Maybe I know Mark Lawrence has done it, but it's not that common. And so what's your opinion on the story so far, and have you encountered that much in your reading?
Well, no, I've not really. So, but I remember Dad said it was actually quite hard to kind of write that opening, because it's trying to fit in. It's like, what moments to actually put in there, because obviously you have to cut a lot out. You have to keep the main storyline, but also you want a bit of tone and atmosphere, so the reader's not just saying, "Oh, this happened, then this happened, then this happened." I remember he said he had quite a bit of fun going through it, but it was actually harder than his usual kind of streamlined kind of his writing plan.
Yeah, I think we should see much more of it really in epic fantasy anyway, when you've got multi-POV, because it's just, there are these sprawling landscapes and these sprawling cast of characters, and if you read a Goodreads review of an epic fantasy book, it usually 9 times out of 10 will mention how it can't remember many of the characters. So I think it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. And I mean, I love reading books as soon as they come out. I don't have the discipline to wait, basically. And so then off at least a year until the next one. And so, having that little summary is just, it's a gem really at the beginning of a book, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I know that, for me, when I read into every detail, I'm like, is this something I have to remember for the next time? So when you lay it out of here's this character, they're part of this group, they do this, they do that, it is so helpful. And that's kind of what this book does. I think, it's book 2 of the Bloodsworn Trilogy, right? So it's the second. And it really, to me, it really enters epic fantasy territory in a big way, coming from the first book. The first book, Shadow of the Gods, had 3 POV characters, and now you're adding 2 more, and we're kind of just expanding. We're adding more gods are coming into the mix and all this stuff. So it's definitely appreciated. But one of the things we have to talk about at the beginning of this discussion is that John Gwynne has really kind of cemented himself as the Norse influenced fantasy master. Was this something that you've seen from him your whole life? Has he always been the Norse mythology guy? What's it like growing up with someone who is just an intense reenactor, super knowledgeable? Has that always been the case?
I mean, well, we're a family who absolutely adores history, and that largely stems from Papa Gwynne himself. And people have read the Faith from the Fall, and that's kind of Celtic and kind of Roman inspired. And he's always loved kind of Norse mythology and Norse history. But it's really when he's thinking of what series I want to write next, that he thought, I want to go into something a bit of a different theme in history. And then he started his research, absolutely adored it, and we became Viking reenactors. So he learned a lot there, and he thought he took a lot from what combat was actually like. We weren't quite in the adrenaline rush of fighting for your life, but he said he learned a thing or two from it. And it was really from there. It's all from the love of history, really.
Yeah, obviously Dad's, of course, a big Tolkien fan as well. So anyone who's read The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings.
Yes, it's happening. It's happening. Dylan hasn't read The Hobbit. For anyone who hasn't been paying attention on Twitter, it is now public knowledge.
I have read The Lord of the Rings, which is harder to read than The Hobbit, for the record. I'm gonna crank The Hobbit. I'm flying to New York. I'm gonna crank The Hobbit out just on that flight. Get this over. I'm not going to stretch it out like Charles did with Eliza Locke Lamora, because I don't need that kind of attention. Charles loves being the villain. I hate it, so I can't take it. So gotta read The Hobbit. I will say to somewhat veer this away from me, but keeping on the Tolkien talk, we got before we'd ever read your dad's work, we did this like book recommendation. This is a long time ago at this point. Book recommendations for fans of the Lord of the Rings. And we did one of those calls out on Twitter just to have people chime in. And I would say by far the number one recommendation that we got over and over again was the Faithful and the Fallen series, I think, which was shocking for us as such a modern book. Like, so how do you think that your dad balances these elements of the like classic with gods and all this kind of stuff with a much more modern feeling, I guess, world and series?
Yeah, well, I think as we've said, Dad is inspired by Tolkien. He loves all of his works, including The Hobbit, but he also loves Gemmell as well, and he's kind of taking those traditional fantasy elements and then adding a lot of morally grey characters in kind of a grittier, more realistic world. And he wanted to bring that, even though there are gods and we're in a completely fantastical world, he wanted to bring that sense of reality to the Bloodsworn and the Shadow of the Gods, the Hunger of the Gods. And that's kind of, I think, where the link is, where it's got those traditional fantasy elements in terms of you can tell there is a bad side, but it's not as clear cut as perhaps some traditional fantasy books.
Yeah, and I think the Faith in the Fallen, I think what Dad did there was he's got, Lord of the Rings has that kind of homely feel, doesn't it? It's got those tropes that we all know so well, where we feel quite safe with reading it. And I think Malice, especially the book one of the Faith and the Fallen, achieves that quite well as well, because we've got these tropes and we feel like we know where they're heading. And then for the most part we do, but then Dad will kind of subvert them later on, adding that kind of new modern take on tropes, where we see with the likes of Joe Abercrombie, the First Law, he has his fellowship and then he will subvert it later on.
That's what
who hasn't read it, I won't go on anymore, but yeah, so I think that's what appeals to people. That's a good deflection as well, Dylan. I applaud that.
That was good. And then
it takes a lot of strength for him to direct the topic off of himself. Like, that's huge.
I'm growing. I don't like the negative attention. It's that's really tough for me to handle. All right, well, I also want to say that I really appreciate how in this modern fantasy side, we do have these morally gray characters coming from your dad, but he does, I think, I don't want to speak for him, but he believes in heroes. And I think that that's a really cool thing and something that does differ from our beloved Joe Abercrombie books, but helps him establish his own flavor.
Yeah, definitely. I think Papa Gwynne likes to take that. There are people Abercrombie. There are some people trying to do good, but they make a lot of mistakes on the way, and that can have some catastrophic consequences, as we see in the Bloodsworn. But yeah, definitely not quite as far as Abercrombie.
I think the beauty of multi-POV is you're able to have those, you can have a character who you think is heroic, and then you can have the others. They can all take a different spin on it, can't they? And I think Hunger of the Gods, where it's different to Shadow of the Gods, it kind of introduces some characters who you already know as a POV, but they're kind of more on the dark side. They're more on the very grey side. But they always think they're right, don't they? Which is what I really enjoy reading in a kind of a villain.
Exactly.
In their chapters.
Yeah, especially ones where we're the readers also, we're like, I'm actually a bit torn here. That they're definitely wrong in some ways, but they actually sound kind of right as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because these new POVs could definitely, I guess you could say some of them are like the villains, but really everyone's just like in their matter of happenstance in this. And we really like the new characters. Like, we have a character named Gudvar that I really enjoyed. His voice just really pops out from amongst the other characters with his internal dialogue and his cursing and all of that. It was like a real interesting kind of departure from our original trio from Shadow of the Gods. Yeah. But what makes it, like Dylan was saying about believing in heroes, Lord of the Rings is very like good versus evil. Okay, Sauron is a bad guy. He's literally like evil incarnate. And
depending on how you
Frodo's, there's everyone's got their own opinions, right? Depends on who you know. But in this book, what makes you feel like this hero aspect is you have who I would argue is like the main character in all of this, Orca, and she's trying to get her son back, which is something we could all be like, okay, that's a good heroic thing to do. A mom wants to rescue her son, whether she's like a absolute like crazy warrior who just will kill anyone to get to her son and this and that, and she's got certainly some of her own quote evil qualities to her. The fact that she's got this noble pursuit of rescuing her innocent child is what kind of couches the whole thing as like, okay, this is kind of our good guy that we're rooting for right now. And that is like it's an interesting kind of blend of what we're typically used to with like morally gray anti-hero type stuff, with like why we all fell in love with fantasy in the first place, the noble quest kind of thing. So that's what I'd say is like a really unique blend in this trilogy, and just John Gwynne as an author, is that he's able to kind of create his own hybrid influence style that I really enjoyed. And then you add the Norse-inspired, Celtic-inspired mythology around it. It really stands out.
Totally agree. Yeah, definitely. I think, the blend of Norse mythology in there is a huge thing. If you've read anything like Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, or I'm sure people know about Thor from the MCU movies and Asgard and all that kind of stuff. But Dylan's shaking his head.
Never heard of Thor.
Yeah. Who? Thor,
you
who?
said Thor? How do you spell that?
But yeah, so I think, and one thing that Dad loves history, but he also loves mythology. That's why he loved The Hobbit, and there were these influences from actual Viking Age texts, and the sagas that lots of people reference as well. Like there was a saga of Fafnir and Sigurd, and Sigurd was a dragon slayer, so that's where kind of Tolkien got the idea of Smaug from, that kind of thing. But then Dad kind of uses Norse mythology within Hunger of the Gods. It's obviously a very Scandinavian world, where it's very, the landscape is very bitter, and the landscape is literally made from a dead god. This mountain range is actually one of the dead god's skeletons. So if you've played God of War and you've heard of Jormungandr, then you might have encountered something like that. But another thing, I think you're definitely right, Charles, where you mentioned kind of Orca has that noble quest. But it'd be interesting if Orca wasn't searching for her son, but she was doing these deeds. Someone would probably think she was a character on the bad side of the scale, right, which is interesting. So I think that's where Dad kind of takes a departure from the faith in the fallen, and his most noble character is still doing some pretty dark and dastardly things.
Yeah, I mean, if you just jumped into Orca in The Hunger of the Gods, you might not have as easy a time seeing her as the hero, but because in The Shadow of the Gods we have this almost origin story of her where it's like she did try to just settle down with her spouse and have a kid and be a good mom, and then she had to go full Taken, Liam Neeson style.
Yeah, I think Kratos meets Liam Neeson from Taken is a good blend for Orca. That's kind of the vibe I got.
I do know that.
Which is scary, by the way. It's terrifying.
Yeah, she has some really iconic scenes, I think. Like as we were reading them, Dad will send us them like a few chapters, a batch of chapters, and then we'll read it, and then we'll be hammering his door for more. We read these scenes with Orca, and we were like, they're just so good. We just want to talk about them all the time, didn't we? Yeah. And it is her arc is addictive to read, because obviously we like action in our stories as well. And when Orca's on the page, there is tons of action, which is great.
Absolutely. And another interesting element to this is, we already established that you guys are big into history. I've done a lot of reenactment. I've seen pictures of all of you in like mail and holding weapons and shields and stuff like that. And it really does translate onto the page. I'd say that's another like cue for certain readers is like, it's not slice of life, but there's a lot of details in it that you can tell that John Gwynne was very knowledgeable about this way of life. We said this in our Shadow of the Gods discussion about how the way he was writing about the shield wall and having to like frantically put on your helmet or your gauntlets or something while you're being charged and you're holding the shield and stuff. And in this one, I think we've got where it's like, you need to like poke a new hole in the leather strap for your helmet, all these little details that permeate the story. It's, although there's creatures and magic and gods and stuff, it is very firmly rooted in reality, and a lot of the action is firmly rooted in reality. It's very gritty, and And to me, that was a huge selling point, because things like Lord of the Rings, where the action kind of happens at a higher level and there's wizards involved and stuff, where it's like in Hunger of the Gods, you're getting a lot of skirmishes after skirmish, and they are intense and they are very real. So I really appreciated reading those. It definitely kept the action moving in this book. So fans of action are definitely going to feel at home here.
Yeah, I think Dad wanted to go for kind of a Beowulf vibe, where it's it's set in actual real time. It feels like it is the Viking Age, but these monsters are also very real as well. And there are some very nasty monsters, especially in Hunger of the Gods, where Dad gets to experiment a bit more with that kind of Witcher style monster, I think.
Yeah, and everything, it doesn't have to be on one side or the other. They're on their own side. It's about survival. It's about what's my next meal, basically. And that's why you get a lot of quite, in a sense, random encounters where you're not expecting it, especially with these monsters and beasts.
Do you guys have a particular favorite monster you've encountered?
Oh, man.
I mean, I feel like this seems really basic, but I love the way that your dad does trolls. And I just love when they always appear in like these stories, almost like fables, and the trolls have actual like personalities. So I feel like that's way up there. I also, Vesely, I feel like is just like a really fun character. I love when your dad he does a lot of ending the chapters with like a comment about teeth, and that always gets me cracking up. So yeah, I mean, those two definitely stick out for me.
Yeah, she's the weirdest tooth fairy ever, isn't she?
She does have a...
You got to be more patient to get the teeth. You can't go in and just grab them yourself.
Yeah. She doesn't learn quickly. We saw a review on Goodreads the other day of someone said like you shouldn't read John Gwynne because he has this fascination with testicles, and obviously whenever you read about the trolls, they have their pendulous testicles flying everywhere. But it's an obstacle that you have to dive under, So, but there is someone out there who really isn't a fan of Dad because of that. I think they said he has a sick mind or something like that. It's so funny.
I mean, let's be real. Your attention would go right there in real life. He's just portraying it honestly. It's like, here's the thing you're going to notice first.
But you won't see that in Tolkien. Although I have not read The Hobbit, I doubt we get any troll testicles in that one.
I think they have appropriately placed loincloth or something. Yeah. The trolls were clever enough to make some loincloths. But in Dad's books, the testicles are full on show.
Yeah.
For me, I was a big fan of Leek Rifa. I don't know if you'd consider Leek Rifa a monster, but I do. It's the gods to me that create this element of like, oh, there's these pieces on the chessboard that could move this story in any direction. And Leek Rifa, to me, there's like some of those early scenes where they're underground and she's kind of she's just coming back into her power and authority. She's just resurrected, and this is how this book kicks off. It's not a spoiler. And just immediately the way she like brings down the law and the presence that she's able to dominate amongst her subordinates and things like that was a lot of fun to read. It reminds me of that classic old school villain that I've always loved reading, but there's something slightly different about her, still kind of monster about her, because she's a dragon god. So the fact that she's able to walk that line was one of my favorite, I guess you'd call her a creature moments of the book.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite aspects of Hunger of the Gods was the kind of the dynamic between Leek Rifa and those surrounding her, because she's she's just awoken, so obviously that recovery, not at her full strength, and then obviously those around her, like, wow, we're actually seeing her in the flesh, and she's got a very vicious side to her, which is very monster-like, but very sharp-witted and very clever as well.
Yeah, and the great thing about fantasy is that we can have these gods and they can actually be on the planet with the people, and they just feel a little bit different, don't they? And then, and there are some other gods that will come into play. We won't spoil it for others, but hint, hint, there is a huge wolf on the cover.
But this scene does not happen, and there is no wolf. That's right.
No, that's actually a tooth fairy, and it happens in a different book. No, for those listening, that scene is in the book. There is a big wolf, but yeah, no, we love seeing the dynamic between them, and hopefully in book 3 there will be some pretty cool showdowns.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll say on Grifa, I know I'm with Charles on this. She's the old school villain, but I also something I always appreciate about villains. I think the best villains, they have a motivation that makes sense. Like you can get behind what they would like to have accomplished, but their methods that they choose to go about it are just so off base that you can never get behind those. And I think like Leek Grifa, yes, sure, she wants to rule everything, which is part of it. But the other part of it is she sees a world that she's come into where folks who are tainted, who have any drop of God's blood, are like at the lower end of a caste system. And she sees problems with that. Of course, she goes too far and she's like, and now they should be above other people and I should be above everyone. But at the same time, like you can at least understand why she thinks there's a lot of things wrong with the current world.
Yeah, for sure. She's not a fan of equality, is she? No. She wants a complete reversal. But yeah, no, so she's got her motivation there. And also you can see that she's angry at her situation. She was locked up for a very long time, and she has certain gods and other people to blame as well. So kind of her arc is going to be about
personal vengeance,
but because she has so many people and tainted at her disposal, then she's going to go probably above and beyond what probably someone should or could, really. Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah. You probably shouldn't go to the leg.
It's like Thanos, isn't it? Yeah, he does it in such a terrible way. Yeah.
She even, at one point, I think Charles would appreciate, she put on her marketing cap and was like, we need to rebrand Tainted. We need to, I forget the word you remember that, Charles? I forget the word that she used instead. She's like, you should be called, but I can't remember it. But I definitely thought of you, Charles. So I was like,
I do remember that scene. She's like talking to a bunch of like, in this world, there's people that have God blood in them, and they're considered tainted. But Lick Grifa, she's going through the rebrand of like, we have to control the message here, and you have blood of gods in you. That's like the next level. That's not bad. That's like really cool. So I do remember that scene where she's kind of rallying the troops, so to speak. Yeah, that's a good moment. I don't think she's wrong either in that case.
No, she's just trying to be positive. That's all she wants to do. It's all about mindfulness. She's found who she is now, and her purpose is to kind of make all of her kids feel like part in the world.
Feel wanted.
Yeah, exactly. She's
and actually like love yourself, love who you are.
Yeah. Live, love, and laugh. Come on,
unless you've not got a drop of God's blood in you.
Yeah, exactly. Where you cannot laugh or laugh.
No. Then you're in a little bit of trouble, I think. But
oh, definitely. So so we've got loads of monsters in there. We've also got the kind of historical aspect of actually like different war bands, and they're sailing around, and I saw some people might get a little bit confused between the two different bands, because there are two war bands on their own, aren't there? You've got the Bloodsworn, and then you've got the Raven Feeders, and then you've got the
Battlegrim.
The Battlegrim, thank you. Mm-hmm. I was looking at you, Will, thinking.
I thought you were just looking at me.
And Will was just conniving away to get his Robin Hood books back.
He's like, Fitz isn't there. So, but no, what I love is you mentioned earlier that Dylan Charles, where you've got a little fable, a little story from one of the characters going on about the different animals as well. And I think there's actually one story from that character in each of the books where they talk about some of the monsters in the world. And usually they mention cheese as well, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, and I love how it kind of fits that humour, but there's like a didactic message, like something to learn from there as well.
Yeah,
and it often comes into play somewhere in the book as well.
Yeah,
I will say I was, the cheese arc was a real page turner for me. I'm like, we need Spick to get that cheese, and this is one of those fun little character moments that caught me by surprise.
It's a good side quest. Yeah, it's a good fantasy side quest to get the biggest wheel of cheese you can.
Well, Spick was actually inspired partly by Ed, his love of cheese. And so yeah, so we have Ed to thank for that.
I think Dad came into the kitchen one time, and I just took a break from playing Skyrim for a quick couple of minutes, and I ran to the fridge and I poured a bit of cheese out, and I was just gnawing at it in the packet, and then Dad wasn't impressed really, but he obviously thought I could use this.
I'll put a note down. Character.
Silently with a notepad while writing this down.
Well, you seem to be influencing some of the more unseemly characters. I don't know how that speaks to how your own father sees you, but hey, at least you're in there. It's an honor just to be included.
Well, Will inspired me.
I'll take anything.
So
we were getting to that. You can decide which bits, though.
Yeah, just kind of frightening, but I will say, he was one of my favorites. He's a charming guy. Guy's got a lot of charisma. He might be atop my who would I grab a beer with from the Hunger of the Gods rankings.
Yeah, I think a lot of them, they wouldn't be great drink buddies, would they? But I think Svik, he could. He'd make us laugh quite a bit.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, he keeps it real, I would say.
He tries his best.
He's still scary, but at least he's got a sense of humor about him.
Yeah, he can hide it for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, guys, The Hunger of the Gods, fantastic second book in a trilogy. I find that sometimes when you're writing trilogies, there's a lot of challenges with the second book. I don't know if Papa Gwynne has mentioned this to you at all, but has he mentioned oh God, the second book slump is real? Is this something that he was trying to, focus on? Did anything ever come up? How do you think you handled the fact that okay, I've got to get to the third book, the gods are going to clash? What's the process like to get there?
Well, he's mentioned that he is wary, because obviously there's that, everyone's very aware of what a second book can be, and he's wary when he sets out planning it. But he said, I remember he said he tries to forget about that and just think, where should the story go, where it's developing. And then usually what he does is he thinks of the key events, and then so it's like a timeline for each of the characters when they'll interlink with each other. And then he'll think if he's got enough action in there, enough to keep a story going, then he starts writing. And so, it's kind of with that in mind that he needs enough going on, and it needs to also be with the end goal in mind, and it's about just crafting that balance.
Yeah, you want it to be fast-paced, but you also want it to kind of develop more of the story, don't you? And I think Hunger of the Gods does a really good job of setting up Book 3, which is really, a Book 2's job, really, isn't it? To
make the culmination
the climax in Book 3 feel even better, I think. So, and it's just moving the pieces on the chessboard into position for the final stroke, really. And I think the ending of Hunger of the Gods really achieves that. I'm trying my best not to say any spoilers here. But if anyone's not read it, some big things happen.
I think we can say the ending it's shocking, it's exciting, it's amazing. And not give any details as to why that's the case, but
it would be fair to say that everyone hasn't yet shaken hands and decided to go for a drink with each other. Not yet, anyway.
Right, and that's a good point, because that's something that I believe John Gwynne is known for as well with his other series. It's the guy's not afraid to just absolutely devastate you when the time is right. And I think, this is a spoiler-free discussion here, but I think he definitely continues that well. And it's something that can be hard to do. I feel like in the post-grimdark world of fantasy, we expect any characters to die at any time, murdered by anyone, that kind of stuff. But the fact that you're still Papa Gwynne is still able to gut punch us, and he's not afraid to play certain pieces or plot moments when you least expect them, because something could be this huge grand face-off at the end of the third book, but he's well, this happens now, and you're oh my God, that is going to change the trajectory of Book 3 forever. And I haven't yet forgiven Papa Gwynne for the way Book 2 has ended. We'll have to see how Book 3 goes. That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah.
No forgiveness yet. Sorry, but we'll all hang on the third book. But that's what I'll say about, that's kind of the segue I was fishing for, asking that question about the book 2 slump, because I think we definitely recognize, like, there's certain moments and cards that I'm not afraid to play, even if it kind of changes where you think the story's getting set up. And I think Gwynne has a reputation for that from his other series, and that certainly is very prevalent in this series as well. For anyone that's like read Malice and is thinking about going into reading these books, I think it's like you got that same impactful story moment that you're just not ready for, and it happens a couple times.
It is with the Faith and the Fallen. It's continued to now, where Papa Gwynne would say to us just before he's about to write the book, "Who are your favourite characters?" And at first we were really open with him. We told them who they are.
Honesty is a big thing in our house,
Well, it was.
Used to be.
And then we'd be given the draft, and every character we'd named is dead. Not quite everyone, but a lot of them. We were just absolutely horrified.
But you could get to the point where you could actually see in his mind, thinking, okay, you've said this character. Oh, I think I know how they could die. This is how it's going to happen.
And so then, you're saying that this is your fault? Is that what we're hearing?
Well, the thing is, this time we tried to avoid it. Well, I was like, Nick Richter is my favourite person. Really person. But I think that one, I didn't quite fool him that time.
Yeah, he's getting cleverer in his days. Unfortunately, he's finding out our strategy, which is a big shame to be honest. But I will say that we there was a bit of a time when we read the end of book 2 when we didn't talk to him for a little while, because we were really ashamed of how he did a character dirty. It was really upsetting for us. But it does feel like no character is safe. That's why sometimes I do dread reading his books. I'm rereading The Faith and the Fallen at the moment, and I'm still hoping this character doesn't die at the end of book 2. I just hope it's changed from the last time I read it.
We're going to have to get him to write another version.
I do the same thing.
I would like a Disney version of them all, where they all come back to life or something.
Right. A choose your own adventure kind of thing, where it's like...
In The Lies of Locke Lamora, when we just reread that, or I reread it, Charles... this was his first time very recently. He read The Lies of Locke Lamora after over a decade of being encouraged by me, petition. And now he still has not expressed any interest in reading Red Seas Under Red Skies.
I'm interested, but you have to read The Hobbit first.
Okay.
This is. I have to change the narrative.
I've lost all my leverage here. But when we were rereading that, I had a similar reaction where I can't say anything about what happens, but I was definitely hoping a certain character that does die in that.
Maybe I had a 40 this time. Last time.
But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, and then it's upsetting all over again. And I can only imagine when the reread of The Hunger of the Gods comes up, and I won't, shocking moments. I won't say more, but
it's shocking. That's what everyone needs to know.
And Dad hasn't told us yet what's going to be happening in book 3. Like, he doesn't really tell us what happens at the end. He might share a few details. Like, he mentioned the kind of alien-inspired monsters for book 2. They're pretty nasty, aren't they? If anyone's seen Alien or Aliens, they're a little bit like that. But so he doesn't really mention any kind of key moments. He will just ask us maybe what we're interested in seeing happening, and then he sees a way of maybe fitting something that fits with his imagination in there. So we're not sure which characters, whether any will be added or anything like that. Obviously, Hunger of the Gods had 2 new characters. One of them felt very Abercrombie-esque in the way that the things that they think is very different to what they say, and they're a little bit like Jezzel, I think, in which made me laugh a lot. Even Glockter, what he thinks is completely different.
I was thinking like a Jezzel Glockta blend myself.
He's
because he's scathing like Glockta is, but he's kind of just funny.
I think it's like his cowardice that is so interesting to get in the head of, because all the other point of view characters, say what you want about them, but they are all brave, I would say. I mean, including Bjor, like, who's a little more on the. I don't want to say too much about viewer for spoiler reasons too, but I'll say, yeah, something about Goodvar. Am I saying that right?
No, Guthvar.
Guthvar? Okay, yeah, I need to redo your dad does have this like pronunciation guide, so that's entirely on me. Guthvar. He is he's just so cowardly. He's such a survivalist, which like I don't know. It's in some way, I don't think I would be like Guthvar, but in some ways, the survivalism of him is like appeals to me because I'm like, I think, push comes to shove. This is a scary world. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive.
Yeah, I think Temple from Red Country.
Temple is a good comparison. And then, and you compare someone like Varg, who's, no sense, who's just going to charge in there. And maybe that's not anything like what I would do. So it's fun to read.
Well, I loved it.
It's also kind of like, what is it, Admiral Tully, is it? Who's like, he knows, like...
Corporal Tully.
Corporal Tully, just like getting in the ranks, not getting too much attention, just trying to stay alive and not work that hard. Also, that's very important. It's like, why would you want to be that level of the military? Then you actually have to work.
Target,
You have to go to war and stuff. This is where you want to be, right? And this level of mediocrity is the sweet spot. So you kind of get those vibes too.
Yeah, what I love is that, Ed, you mentioned Temple, didn't you? But Temple, he's like, he hates that he's a coward, doesn't he? Yeah, and he's trying to change him. Goodbye. He's like, he's not real with himself. I am a hero, aren't I? And then
that's true.
What I hate and love at the same time is how whenever a character is close to killing him, he accidentally kills them. Like he doesn't even mean to sometimes, or someone else gets in the way, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm going to stab you now," while your back is turned, and it's just like, no, and it's so annoying. He just always survives, but
and someone plays to his ego, and he's buying it. He's like, "Okay, I can convince myself of that. Yeah, sure."
Yeah, and there is a particular torture scene in around the middle of Hunger of the Gods that I love reading because he went through some extreme trauma. I won't say what, but it's a lot of fun. And it is nice seeing, reading someone that you hate
actually getting some recompense.
Is in pain. Yeah, that was good fun. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing what other characters may be added to book 3. I'm not sure. Do you guys have any preferences? Who would you like to see a POV from?
I'm afraid, in case you go and report to Papa Gwyn on me and, and get them murdered.
Get murdered, but this is I think we both said Brecca. Like, we were just thinking that would be really interesting to finally get into his head, and I just think his work, it makes a lot of sense if he becomes a even more important character. And then Svik, which is just mostly going to be about cheese. Just it's like the whole like
that can be the side quest.
Right. Well, if there's just like a single point of view standalone spin-off that's just Svic's point of view throughout the entire trilogy, and you think the book is just all about seeking out cheese. Like that's the main arc of the entire book.
It just so happens that the cheese is in the direction everyone else is going.
Exactly.
She doesn't have a hoard of gold. She has a hoard of cheese. She has a recipe.
Yeah, I think Brecca is the top of the list for me too. It just seems like, the third book is branching out in a certain way, and you're like, okay, how are these characters like moving on and like continuing to exist in this world? It's like it almost kind of is like in this epic fantasy world, what even is like a victory in this world? You're not quite sure, and there's a couple things that we're rooting for, obviously, but they're few and far between these days. So just be curious to see how certain characters kind of get their closure when it seems like there's no end in sight for some of these guys. So I'm really excited to see how John Gwynne kind of wraps all of that up, because one of the things I'll say, this is one of the few last things I want to talk about, was the theme of family in a bunch of different ways is very prevalent throughout the story. Obviously, the whole inciting incident is Orca trying to save her son Taken style from against all these odds of gods and monsters and other warring parties and politics and stuff like that. So obviously there's the big family dynamic there, and I think that's why Orca for a lot of people is like our favorite character, because in the beginning of Shadow of the Gods, they have this lovely little home they carved out for themselves. Everything's peaceful. Not something you necessarily see a lot of in fantasy. Is usually like with the parent-child dynamic, the child's the chosen one and has to go off away from the family and do their adventure, and the parents are just chilling. So it's interesting to see that flipped. Yeah, or dead. Yeah, exactly.
Like the classic Disney,
like every Disney,
kill the parents.
Yeah. It's like we don't know how to deal with family and then have a hero at the same time. You know, the family kind of is too distracting. So get them out and focus on the hero and themselves. But John Gwynne very deliberately keeps family in there in all its messy glory sometimes, but also in its like sentimental nature too. Because Orca's a character, like we said, you take out family, and what is she? She's basically just like a violent
murder,
war criminal. But you add family in there and she becomes very endearing. So that obviously, and then you have other characters as well, like Elvar, who has the more found family, but then her relationship with her family is like the exact opposite. So you get the whole exploration of themes of family and found family and stuff like that. And to me, it's just like so appreciated, because it's like, hey, look, we all have relationships with our family. We don't just go on a quest and forget about them, kind of a thing. You still have to like write back to home or have a dad out there somewhere. That to me was a huge piece. And seeing, such a lovely family unit like yours as well, it's no surprise that John Gwynne puts family above all things.
I don't even think he plans it, really. I think it's just something that is just naturally in his writing. I think, you read The Faith and Fallen and Of Blood and Bone, it is really the main theme. And the reason we say truth and courage at the end of our videos is from The Faith and the Fallen, but it's kind of a motto in our family as well. And, I think, Charles, you got it completely right. You've got actual, real life family with Orca, and then you've got found family with Elvar and Varg. Even like the characters you don't like as much, like Guthvar. His only family is his aunt, and he does lots and lots of things to try and make her feel proud of him. So in his own crazy little way. So it's just an element, I think, while staying safe. Yeah, it's an element of Dad's writing that will probably play a part in all of the books he writes. It's just a part of him. He is a very good, an amazing family member. We're very lucky to have our dad. So it's just probably something natural, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see. I've always been fascinated by the like nuclear family dynamic in fantasy. It's such like a rare story to be told. Like Lord of the Rings, none of those characters have family. They're just all their own guys working together. Sure, they become a fellowship, whatever. There's brotherly camaraderie and love and all of that, but like Frodo, you don't know Frodo's parents. Like, they don't exist. This is fascinating that we've come so far. But, everyone has a family and can relate to, like, being annoyed at their parents or something like that. And this obviously takes it to the crazy level. But there's a couple moments in here where family members come together or don't come together that it's just like, to me, one of the more gripping aspects of the story, and certainly a unique standout thing in fantasy for some reason.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't reach Elvar levels of annoyed at their family, but
hopefully you're not at war with your family. That would suck.
If you don't see William in the next video, then I've gone full Elvar.
Yeah, you have to ask who inspired Elvar. We need to find out.
He also likes cheese, so there you go.
Wow, could be Ed. Could be.
In the next reason.
What kind of cheese was it? Was it like? I mean, in the moment of the inspiration, when you were playing Skyrim, you went over, you get the cheese, like a Polly-O cheese stick, a string cheese, like.
I was about 12 or 13. That would have been my cheddar days. Yeah.
Okay.
Those were the cheddar years.
Eras? Is this like it's like Taylor Swift albums? It's like the Reputation era. It's like the cheddar era.
Yeah, it used to be like my haircuts, but now it's the cheese era. Yeah. Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, I guess, the Gwynne family history. It's like, and that's when Ed entered the Cheddar years. We didn't see much of him for a while.
Yeah.
The Cheddar and Skyrim. Yeah.
It's like a horror film. You looked at like an old photograph book or something, and it's just me holding all these different pieces of cheese. Like, the Red Leicester years.
Oh, wow.
Wait for the blue cheese.
Yeah. I will say...
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. This is going to be more about cheese. Please talk about...
No, you can...
No. Okay.
Always
okay.
more
I was going to talk
cheese.
about the Green Thunder. The Green Thunder, Charles. Best cheese. It's a cheddar. You remember that? When we went to... There's this like speakeasy... You'll remember this. There's this like speakeasy place here in Colorado, like a bar. Oh, see, he's... The best cheese, and it is a cheddar that I've ever had. And they call it Green Thunder. And... Charles came here and we had the cheese. Charles, was it life-changing or...
It was excellent. I remember that whole charcuterie experience being like premium. So
Ed and Will, you can come too. If you're ever in Colorado, it's Green Thunder on me. Ed might book a ticket right now.
Yeah, I'll be back in a minute. Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
On for the Green Thunder.
There you go.
It sounds like my street choice, but I mean, we do need more food in fantasy. I reckon. I think I always like reading about different types of food. I can't remember. I read a book recently in fantasy that was mentioning food, but I can't remember what it was now. Usually, it's just soup or meat and cheese, isn't it? But
it reminds me of like
mud.
A lot of like
it's always mud.
Those Japanese animated the Studio Ghibli movies like Totoro and Spirited Away and all that. Their attention to food sometimes is like next level, and you really appreciate it. Where they're like making a soup and like making eggs and folding sushi. You're like, oh my god, this looks amazing. Like, not too much of that in the fantasy world. Like a lot of food just seems really depressing in fantasy books, or not mentioned at all. So
it's either mutton or it's all beige food, isn't it? So
right, just a pile of goop of some kind. But
I did just watch Mononoke yesterday for the first time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did they have a good food scene in that? I can't remember.
I was trying to think, but I don't feel like they did. There's just a lot of like, the classic.
Spirited Away has some good food.
Spirited Away has great food. Yeah.
This is not how I thought the conversation would go. All the death. Right.
Most of there's hunger. Wolves. Yeah. Wolves feature prominently both in the Hunger of the Gods and in Princess Mononoke. And I will say, when it comes to food, it's like every second, like probably I'd say 15 to 20 times there's an animal that really wants to eat the protagonist. It's like it like comes up constantly. So hunger, relevant. Wolves, relevant. Yeah. I'm going to say I did a good job.
Exactly. I will say, it is nearing lunchtime around us. I guess across the pond, it's nearing dinner time. So I guess we're all in that state of mind.
And then cheese talk. I mean,
all that cheese talk, man. Getting me excited. But yeah, I mean, we've wrapped up book 2 here. Book 3 is on the way. I won't think to ask you guys to for any details, but is there like a release schedule for book 3? Do we know anything publicly to get people hyped for the conclusion of the Bloodsworn Trilogy?
Dad hasn't started writing yet. He will. He's just kind of taking his time with it. Since our sister passed away, he's just waiting until he's ready. He doesn't want to force writing because it's obviously a very very personal thing to write as well for Dad as well. So keep your eyes peeled, guys. It will be out there. Eventually, I'm sure you'll see an update on Twitter at some point in the future as well when it's nearing completion. But Dad's a quick wrter anyway, so it shouldn't be too much longer. But he'll do it when he's ready, and I'm sure we'll get an exclusive scoop when he starts. And then when book 3's out, guys, we'd love to have you on our channel. We could do maybe a spoiler discussion, and then we might have to try and or held in maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, We love these spoiler-free episodes for keeping people interested and more mass appeal, all that kind of stuff. But there's something to the deep dive, and there's been a couple times,
especially with the way this
especially
book
the
ends.
ending. Yeah,
you guys have a lot to
Right.
answer to for the ending, but
it's not their responsibility. They don't have to.
Well, they
that's
admitted
all
they had
on their
some
dad.
influence.
Not on purpose.
No, not on purpose, but
An
still.
accidental influence.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we say to Dad, we're like, "You've killed this character. Why have you done this, you horrible man?" And he'll be like, "I didn't do it.
I'm just telling you what
what happened."
Right. It just the story just moves through him. He's just what did you say the other day, Charles, about your memes?
He's just a conduit for the story, you know.
I told Charles to make some He makes these memes that are very good for his personal accounts. He gotta make some for FTF, the FTF Twitter account, and he's like, the memes just come to me like I'm a conduit.
You don't just
the process.
make memes. I mean, like, what do you think this is? This is an artistic endeavor here.
So the same way that your dad gets out of responsibility for killing all our favorite characters, Charles gets out of responsibility for making memes that are mostly making fun of me at this point. So.
Yeah, you two have something in common then, Charles.
Yeah, you know, one thing we'll have in common. I'll take it. I feel very much like Goodvar right now. It's like, yeah, we do have a lot in common, don't we? We certainly do.
Charles said
we're basically
as he wiped his nose.
We're basically the same.
Just coming down.
Yeah. We'll call you Charles now. Charles.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, I mean, yeah, guys, we can get into all spoiler glory soon, and open invite to always come back onto FTF for any reason. I feel like we've kind of typecasted you guys as our John Gwynne experts, but can you blame us? I mean, you have a direct line to the guy, so.
We'll let you off that one.
Yeah, we appreciate that, but then we've got our first law content over on. Your YouTube channel. That was a lot of fun, but it's been a while now. We definitely got to get something else cooking soon, but
for sure.
And you two were full Slim Shady peroxide blonde in that video, if I'm remembering correctly, right? So you gotta, even if you haven't, even if there's no interest in the first law content, which, first of all, how dare you? But even if you don't have interest in that, listener, you've got to head over there just to see them in full Slim Shady mode.
Mind you, we did look like that character from the Rings of Power trailer, didn't we?
Yeah, you did, and that's exciting. That's coming out soon, right? We're only like 2 months away. Not even.
Nah, not too long.
Yeah. And you did it first.
The Game of Thrones show coming out.
So, yeah, we're very spoiled. We need a Bloodsworn show, really, don't we? That'd be nice.
Absolutely, we need something.
We could all be extras, couldn't we?
There you go. We'll show
Nils
up.
From
be good though, isn't he? So
yes, he definitely at least deserves an audition.
Yeah, I could act. I could be a leading role in a TV show. Why not?
I would say he's quite the lead. That was an interesting read of the book from Charles, where he was like, "Goodvar, this is the main character."
Yeah. Everyone's in their own world, aren't they? So
there's
you can throw me in the back of the shield wall any day.
Hive. There's something where Nils from the Fantasy Hive was trying to get Henry Cavill to play.
Yeah.
I can't remember who, in definitely one of your dad's books. Maybe it was in like one of the Faithful and the Fallen books. But.
Yeah, she was saying that he has to be in the Bloodsworn.
Yeah, he has to. I think she kept trying to get him to read it. So
I mean, that was it.
Everyone should bombard Henry Cavill with messages to go read the Bloodsworn.
Who would he play though?
Who would he play? That's a good question.
That is a good question.
It's hard. I mean,
just in terms of like age, he's too old to be Varg. I mean,
like... How old is he now? He's 30s.
I think he's late 30s, early 40s, maybe. I don't know. Maybe
you could age him up. He could play a certain god that makes an appearance.
Oh, that would be cool.
That maybe Varg's father. But I think a god reveal would be cool because
Papa
it's like
Varg,
Papa Varg. Yeah, exactly. I think there's some options.
I'm sure he can have his pick. He might want to play Spurt or Vesley, even something like that. So
the voice of CGI Vesley.
channel his inner Andy Serkis.
But we don't need to. Yeah, just don't offer him Godfar, okay? We need to keep that position open, just in case.
If Charles has to audition against Henry, I think he's not going to get that role. So.
I think you got it. I believe in you, Charles. I believe in you.
Yeah, they'll go to the like costume fitting, and it'll just be hanging off me. Oh, who was in? You guys? I know you guys saw the Northman, right? That guy definitely. I mean, he.
Alexander Skarsgård.
Yeah, Skarsgård. Right.
Very good.
He
could definitely. I'd say you're watching the Northman. That was. Have you guys seen it?
I've seen it. I'm telling Dylan we have to discuss the movie at some point on the show because I loved it, and I know you guys were big fans because we talked about it a little bit on Twitter. But when I read it, that's what I was so funny. I was watching. I'm like, this is like made for the Gwynne family. I can't even believe it.
I loved it. It was the closest I've seen anything like Dad's Books to actually, on the screen. Obviously, we had the show Vikings and the show The Last Kingdom, which are all great. But this film was really like a reenactor's dream, really. So it was really cool. And Alexander Skarsgård was so cool in it. He was awesome.
I didn't even recognize him. He was so buff in that. Like he got big.
I know. Yeah. It's unfair, really, how huge his arms are.
It's insane. But yeah, he'd be great. And that like for any fan of John Gwynne's work, you got to check out that movie. I think more people need to see it because it was really terrific.
Hey, well, we were saying we gotta have you on for things that aren't just John Gwynne related. Maybe Northman when I finally go watch
that. Sounds good to me. I can put that.
Is that streaming yet or what? I know it's not in theaters anymore. We gotta check it out.
Yeah, it's streaming now. Yeah.
Is it one of those movies that's probably way better in the theater though? It seemed like it.
Yeah, I think
probably. But what movie isn't better in the theater? It's still gonna be good on your TV.
Yeah. Just put the blinds down, create a bit of atmosphere. And have some mead ready. Yeah.
Always have my mead ready.
And some cheese.
Get a nice cheese block. Just
what
a cheese
era
block
are you
and a
in
knife.
now, Ed?
Yeah, just
what era of cheese are you in? So I know what to pair with.
Well, I don't know if it's real, but it's called Mexican cheese, and it looks like red Leicester, but it's got pepper in and chili and all that kind of stuff. I haven't heard of it before, but I had it the other day in a sandwich, and I was like, yeah, that's nice. I just bought some the other day on its own.
Wow, we're in the dawn of a new age. This is a
new era. I'll let you know what the next one will be.
Yeah, you got to keep us updated. This is very important.
I will do.
Well, guys, we've done it. The Bloodsworn Saga here, Hunger of the Gods, Book 2. Highly recommend the series. Highly recommend John Gwynne's work. Highly recommend the Brothers Gwynne YouTube channel, Goodreads channels. Prolific reviewers and content creators, so be sure to check them out.
And where can they find you on all the internet places, by the way?
You can find us as the Brothers Gwynne on YouTube, myself, Will, as the Wolf and Crow on Instagram and Twitter, and Ed as Wolven Armory, or Brother Ed on Twitter. Yeah, I forget what my handle is, but yeah, I usually don't.
Do you have some number, like a couple numbers in there or something?
I think
if you got Brother Ed, I'm very proud of you. If you got that.
No, I had to put 14 in there, I think. Brother Ed was on the table.
Brother Ed 14.
Yeah, so that is my one. But yeah, feel free to check out our channel on YouTube. We've got lots of different content up there, lots of chats about films and other things like that with other booktubers as well, which is a lot of fun.
Smash that subscribe button and all that.
Oh, absolutely. And if you ever want to see Tolkien talks, I'm sure you'll see some of them on there. And I'm sure Dylan will be keeping his eye for maybe a Hobbit chat. Why do we need the Hobbit?
Oh, yeah. There you go. I'm going to be the biggest Hobbit fanboy after this. Just to appease the people.
You never know. Yeah. You'll be like, guys, this book is good.
You should check it out. Anyone heard of it?
Dylan recommends the little known book, The Hobbit. It's like
5 stars on Goodreads.
Like a full more people should read this. Yeah. I didn't see enough people talking about this. Yeah,
exactly.
Had never heard of it until the last week, but got on it right away once I heard of this hidden gem.
Did you guys know Lord of the Rings had a prequel?
It's from this little known author, Junior R. Tolkien. It's
Tolkien, Tolkien.
There's a prequel novelization of the. Oh, you'll say there's a novelization of the movie trilogy.
Yeah.
That's how you really get people's attention.
Film copy, shouldn't you? Yeah, you should get the film copy with the Bilbo one.
Yeah. Charles said there was some sort of fan cut, like fan edit of the Hobbit movies that's actually supposed to be really good. Did you guys heard of that?
I've not seen that.
It took the 3 movies, edited into one, and from what people that have seen it have said it's good. So I'll have to figure out which version it actually is and take a look at it. But yeah, because I haven't seen them since the theater, so it's been a
Oh wow. Yeah. we're rewatching Lord of the Rings at the moment, aren't we? We just finished
awesome.
It's just so good. It's
so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched The Hobbits first and then Lord of the Rings, and it's just a whole new league.
Yeah, it really is.
Right.
But,
it's amazing.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the Rings of Power. Should be good, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Expecting the worst, but hoping for the best. So it'll be covered all bases.
Yeah, we're open to it, but we're not getting too excited.
Yeah, exactly.
Over there either.
It's always tough when you're trying to like put something in the world of a masterpiece, you know?
Yeah.
It's like those Lord of the Rings movies and how well they hold up. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's,
there must be so much pressure.
Yeah.
And it's lightning in a bottle, really, those original movies. So we'll see if they can recreate it, but we'll keep our minds open. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see.
But what we're really holding out for is the film adaptation of the Bloodsworn and any other of John Gwynne's work. We need to get on that.
Need it.
Do you have if you could choose one trilogy to get the adaptation, which one would you choose of your dad's work? Oh, I can see Ed is already super stressed out.
I think Faith and Fauna has a lot of sentimental value of us because I've grown up with that my entire life.
Don't say but.
But I think that cinematically, I think the Bloodsworn would just look so cool. So cool. I mean, as we mentioned, the landscape of a dead god. I mean, how cool would that look on the screen?
Yeah.
I think there's a booktuber called Elliot Brooks did a video saying what could be the next Game of Thrones and was looking at a few different series. And she said, for looks wise, how it would look on the screen, I think she gave Shadow of the Gods 10 out of 10.
Wow.
There you go. I agree. I mean, like you said, just these covers to these books are some of the best in the game already. Just the sense of scope and scale and cinematography of the drama of the covers is first class. And then you have, I would just love to see Orca on the big screen. She's such an interesting character. The fact you have an older, battle-hardened female Liam Neeson type, let's see it. You know, I'd be really interesed in that.
I think Dad writes really cinematically, and you know that is still true for the Fame and the Fallen. As I read it, do my reread at the moment. There are so many scenes that feel like iconic, and you can see them in your head. I think because Dad's such a film buff, he writes with he has to see it in his head first. So seeing the Bloodsworn on the screen will be amazing. I have a lot of love for the Faith and the Fallen because I was reading it at that very impressionable age, and you know those characters are kind of like my family as well. We spoke about them so much, so I would love to see that. I'd love to see maybe all of them if I'm not being
all of them. Yeah.
The whole Gwynniverse. You know, we want to see the whole thing.
I do have a fun fact for you. If you do like the Gwynniverse, I like that. If you like
has that been coined before?
It's a new one.
That's a new one. You can have that.
Like
yeah, it's like looks like a hasty Dylan. I'm gonna go trademark that.
Not letting Ed talk. Sorry, Ed, go on.
No, you know, guys, you're having such a fun time. So, if you like the covers for the Bloodsworn, if you like them, then the cover artist is also doing a special edition of the Faith and the Fallen very soon.
Oh.
He's doing the artwork. Yeah,
he's
doing
the
alternate covers.
Yeah, and that will be through Grim Oak Press over there in America. So, if you haven't picked up Faith and the Fallen yet, any listeners, for you as well, Dylan and Charles, then maybe have a think about that one. That'd be really cool. So the covers, we know they'll be amazing as well. So.
I don't have a physical copy of that, so I'll be on the lookout because I mean these covers are incredible. So I'll have that on the show.
Well, we'll be sharing everything as soon as there's any announcements on it.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm sure they're.
So I better. I'm gonna have to go make sure make sure you're followed on Twitter and YouTube, just so you don't miss those announcements, guys at home, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then everyone should always tweet Dylan to read The Hobbit.
Oh, yeah. Very good point, guys. I agree.
I was going to be like, I'm going to read it before this episode comes out, but it comes out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's not going to happen.
You theoretically could pull it off if you start.
Dedication.
I think Andy Serkis read it in 13 hours, didn't he?
He did.
Like that. So, yeah.
And that was audiobook as well.
So you 2x speed on that. And I do want to say I did most of the Hunger of the Gods for me. I digested it through audiobook. And is it Colin Mace that does the audiobook? Fantastic. You know, and it's to get all those Viking Norse pronunciations, and his Lick Rifa voice is very menacing. I love it. So it's like an excellent audiobook choice as well for those of you that are more inclined.
He's very good at crafting atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Colin Make's got a great voice. I wish I had his voice, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the guy's a talent. And fantastic job with this one. So, yeah.
But guys, thanks so much for having us on the channel. It's been so much fun.
Yes, it's been great.
Yeah,
thanks
so much for coming on.
It really has. We always laugh so much, and it's an absolute blast.
And it always goes in a direction I could never have predicted.
Yeah, it always gets
that's always a guarantee.
We didn't have any tennis references this time,
except that last one. And I didn't know if I should say this on the air or not, but I'm going to Wimbledon next year. So
no way.
Yeah, we'll have to touch base. I don't know how far y'all are from London, but yeah,
for sure. Yeah, we can get there easily. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, nice.
Really
there you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
I may just hop along for the ride to go book hunting. You guys got a lot of good book editions over there I can't get. But.
Yeah. London's a great place.
We'll
make it there, but
we'll leave Charles in a bookstore while we go.
Tennis.
That sounds good to me. Well, yeah. Oh,
sorry, we can talk tennis after. Sorry, Charles.
Right. Well,
we had an interesting final for the record.
I wouldn't know. I didn't watch
the episode. It's not happening.
Hey, we can keep it going. I have no problems. I'm trying to be respectful of the Gwyn's time. I know it's they're busy people.
I mean, I have to blame myself for the tennis references now. I did bring it up. I did say there weren't any this time, and that had to be rectified.
I did sneak a Taylor Swift reference in there.
You did.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
1-0. Match.
Yeah.
Well, give our best to Papa Gwyn, but tell him he's not yet forgiven. And guys, Will, Ed, Brothers Gwyn, check them out. Hunger of the Gods, Shadow of the Gods, check it out. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's always a blast. I'm sure we'll do something again soon, whether it's over on the Brothers Gwyn or here. Open invite, of course. Always a blast. Just really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
For sure. Thanks so much, guys. Dylan, Charles, it's been so much fun. And thanks again for having us on. It's been so much fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Dylan agrees. I was trying to give him an opening.
Yeah, I felt the side. I was like...
So Dylan agrees, and we appreciate that, of course. It's obvious. The love is all around here. We can feel it. So thank you all for listening. You guys are the best, too. We appreciate you putting up with all our segues. It's always a blast. And as always, guys, go forth and conquer, friends.
Truth and courage.
Truth and courage, friends.